Hello, my name is Sam Jahari. I'm coming to you live from allpointstv.com. And we changed the name of the of our of community parent to Briona's um,
The legacy.
Briona's Legacy.
Yeah.
Brain fart there. Excuse me. It's been a while, and I've we ended up going into since the last time I've been on. We went into Lake Fenton High School, Lake Fenton Middle School. We did the presentation of Chasing the Dragon, also in Bendel High School, and we've been in front of over 48,000 kids now. I want to tell you, I had this beautiful, beautiful child named Briona, and Briona was born 10/9 of '93, and it was just she was the love of my life. I never knew what love was until that day she was born, and when she was born, as a father, I put my finger in her hand, and I remember she just squeezed my finger, and I told her, I said, your daddy is gonna be here for you. Your daddy is your protector, and you're my everything. And as a father, I tried to protect her from life, but Briona's mother was an addict, and she struggled with addiction of heroin, cocaine. So all through Briona's life, Briona's mom was in and out of rehabs, in and out of prison, county jails. So at when Briona was 3 years old, I realized that Briona's mom had relapsed, and I needed to get her from her mom. At that time, I was talking with my dad, and I said, Dad, I need to get married, man. I don't know what to do. I need to get my daughter away from her mom. She's struggling with addiction, and I don't know how else to help her. So, at that point, my father, we're Lebanese, and he says, yeah, you've tried everything else. Maybe you need to try your culture, So at that point, I'm like, whatever, let's do it, So, we ended up going to Lebanon, and it was an experience of a lifetime, let me tell you. I met my wife. I met her at an engagement party, and at that point, I had given up on this idea of how people get married like this, and I told my dad, I'm ready to go home. At that point, I had a closet company that was been around for about 10 months, and I was worried about my business, and I didn't see that this was going to take place of me getting married over there. So I'd given up on the idea. Well, it was a Saturday, and I went to this engagement party, and sure enough, I have to tell you, there was 350, 400 people at this party, and throughout the party, this one would come up to my dad and say, "Oh, this girl, wants to meet your son, and this one wants to meet your son." And I was like, at this point, I don't want to meet anybody. I'm done. You come from this country, and they just think that everybody's filthy rich, and money grows on trees over here. So I'd given up on that idea, and but all of a sudden, I see this beautiful, beautiful woman dancing on the dance floor, and it was it was like, wow, who is this girl? And I kept noticing her, and she kept dancing with the same person, and at this point, I started asking about this girl. And everybody said, well, she's not married, she's not engaged. And so at this point, I'm wanting to meet her. So I remember where I was sitting. Me and my father, we were sitting like in by the bathrooms. So all of a sudden, here comes this girl that I've been eyeing all night. And I tell you, there's 350, 400 people, and it was just like the spotlight was just on this girl. I don't know, she just took my heart right away, and I just couldn't wait to talk to her. So, at this point, I see her coming towards the bathroom, and then of course I jumped out and I put my hand out and introduced myself, and she introduced herself, and I said, well, I'd like to dance with you, and she's like, okay, well, I'm going to the bathroom, when I get back, we can dance. And I'm like, okay. So, as she came out of the bathroom, it's like she's walking towards her chairs, and I'm following right along with her. And when she got to her chair, as she sat down, I put my hand out, and I'm like, come here. And she's like, wait a minute, I don't know where you're from, but you want to talk, you sit. I'm not going anywhere with you. So, we started talking, and of course we ended up dancing. But at this point, I asked her if there was somebody in her life and stuff like that. And of course, she said no, not really. But anyways, we danced, and the story goes, I took a car from over here with me, so I had a car, and towards the end of the night, her ride ended up going home, so I ended up giving her a ride home, her and her sister. And I asked her, if I could get to know her and stuff, and she said, yeah, come on over to the house. And I'm 36 years old at this point. She was 23, and I went over to that night. I went home, and I couldn't go to sleep. My father, he'd get up early, he'd go for his little walk, and he'd come back, and he'd, get figs or grapes or something from, off the property, and he'd make me a cup of tea, and he'd wake me up usually. And at this point, my father, he's like, he comes out of the bedroom, and he's like, what's the matter? I said, I don't know, Dad, I just couldn't sleep. He said, well, let's go. So anyways, he ended up taking a shower, and we changed our clothes, and we ended up going over to her house. Now, this is a Sunday, and, we talked. I got a chance to talk to her, meet her parents and stuff. And me and her, we actually got to talk for about like 5.5, 6 hours, And the conversation just flowed, and we seemed to get along really good. So this was a Sunday, and my wife at the time, she was studying to be a nurse. So I told her I'd like to come back over, and she said, okay. I get home about 6 o'clock from school. You're more than welcome to come over. So this was Monday night, and it seemed like that day, it was just the longest day of my life. I didn't understand what was happening. It was like I was like a young kid in school with a school crush that that I just couldn't wait to see her. So later that night, I come over to her house, and I stayed from, I don't know, about 6 o'clock to about 11:30 that night. And I proposed to her that day. And, first of all, I'm running out of time. I need to get a visa, and I wanted to bring her back with me. And I think, a lot of times we date and stuff like that forever. I know for myself, I dated a girl for 7 years, and we got married, and we lasted 10 months. So, so I proposed that day, and I gave her, this was a Monday, and I gave her till Friday to give me the answer. And, I kept coming back every day, and this was Wednesday now. And it was like, listen, I can't wait till Friday. What's it gonna be? I want to marry you. I want to take you, back to America with me. And at that point, my wife, she said yes, and it was awesome. So the following Thursday, you know, we went to the Justice of the Peace, and we got married, under the with the Justice of the Peace, and it was really weird. I was very much infatuated. I don't think the love was there yet, and I'm sure it wasn't for her either. But I just let you know that it's been, we just had our 18th wedding anniversary, and in the long run, I was looking for a mom for my daughter. In return, I got what I needed for my life, my soulmate, my partner, my lover, my friend, my everything. And that is just a wonderful, wonderful woman. And I'm so blessed to have her in my life. So, after about, I don't know, maybe 28 days after we got married and stuff, 24 days, something like that, I ended up getting a visa, and we ended up coming home. And when I came home, Briona's mom, she dropped her off, I think the following day that I came home, at my footsteps, at my door. And I had her for about 10 months. And at this point, Tina, at one time, I would give her $50 a week in child support. I was never ordered or anything like that, but I wanted to take care of my obligation as a father, for my child. So, when Briona, this one day, I don't know, I think I was working for Schwann's or something. I was gone that I was gone all day, and when I came home, I remember my wife was standing, at the, she was standing, by the door on the porch, and she's crying, and I says, "What's the matter?" She says, "Oh, they came with the sheriff came with Tina, and they took Briona." I says, "What do you mean?" She said, "Well, they had court papers, and I had to give her to her." So as I started to find out what happened, in the next couple of days, I had called an attorney and hired an attorney. And what happened is I talked to Tina about a week or so prior to that, and she called me up asking for money. And I told her, why am I going to give you money? I've had Briona for about 10 months now, and I'm taking care of her. You should be paying me child support. Not that I was needing her child support or asking for it, but I was just, you need to be paying child support, not me. So, anyways, because I didn't give her any money, that's why. She ended up going into the courtroom and told the judge that I was going to take Briona overseas, and got a court order and came with the sheriff and took Briona to her. Well, about a week into it, I had hired an attorney, and we were going through getting custody. So at this point, it was a struggle, to be honest with you. I went into the court, and Briona's mom, Tina, she had track marks all over her arm, and she told the judge that she was an IV user, and the judge at the time ordered her to go into rehab. Now, whether she went into rehab or not, she still had the baby. And at this point, I got up in the court, and I'm like, "Your Honor, she's got track marks on her arm, and you're giving her our child. What is wrong with you?" And at this point, the judge looks at me, and "You open your mouth one more time, and I'm gonna put you in jail." At the same time, my attorneys tell me, "Please be quiet." So, anyways, well, 2 weeks I think went by where we went back into court, and at this point, somebody that Tina lived with, they had called me in the middle of the night, and they told me, you need to get your baby away from her mom. I had the police over here until 4 o'clock in the morning. She's still using this and that. So anyways, by this time, um, I had this girl, write me something, or went into the court and, you know, um, made a report of what was going on. So when we went back in front of the judge asked her, if she went to rehab, and she said no, I didn't go into rehab. And at that point, the judge gave me full custody of Briona, and she was 4 years old, almost 4 at the time, and I had full custody of her the rest of her life. Now Briona, she was a very loving kid. I know she was, very happy with me, and we ended up having 2 boys, me and Briona, me and Anaya together, and we had a great family. I have 7 sisters. We have like 15 nieces and nephews. So she had, a big family, and she loved her family very much. Briona played sports. She played soccer, and I even coached her for 3 or 4 years. She did really, she wasn't like an A-B student, but she was like a B-C student, and it's not that she couldn't have been, but she didn't really care for that. It wasn't about, being like top in the class. She didn't have a problem being average or a little above average. But she was very loving. She was good in soccer. She liked to dance. She was a comedian, but she always had. You could tell she was troubled, and how she was troubled is, her mom was in and out of jail, in and out of rehabs, So she was troubled in that sense, and she'd always say, why does my mom love the drugs more than me? And I didn't understand that. I always thought it was a matter of choice. So, anyways, Briona was, Briona, she was really into boys as a teenager, and she'd say, "Daddy, how old do I gotta be before I could date?" And I would tell her, I said, "Briona, when you're 30 and out of the house," and I get a little chuckle, and I'd look at her, and she'd say, "Okay, seriously, Dad, how old do I gotta be to date?" And I said, I was serious, but Briona was a type, she knew how to get what she wanted. She had me wrapped around her finger. I loved this girl to death, and she knew sooner or later I would give in to whatever she wanted. As when you see a child that you love very much that's just troubled, you try to, not where they forget the troubles, but I don't know, you do a little extra. I felt like I had to be the mom and the dad for her. Not that my wife wasn't a good mom to her. She was, but you got to understand that having a parent as an addict, Tina would come into our life, when she'd get out of rehab, she'd come in and just like a bomb would go off, you can't call her mom, she's not your mom, this, that, she just, she was selfish. She was selfish in the point, I think she just felt bad because she wasn't part of her life, that she didn't really know, it was like she didn't want losing Briona to another woman. And it's not that's what's happening, but that's the way, it went down. And so I had Brianna in the therapy all through her life, to help her cope with these things. Um, Now, when Brianna became a teenager, I think she was in the eighth grade, and she's 13 years old, I think. You know, she hadn't talked to her mom in probably like 10 months, and me and my sisters, we had kept talking to her. You need to make up with your mom. You don't know if something happens to her. You don't want that to be on your conscience. This, that. So finally, um, I think about a month and a half before Brianna graduated from the eighth grade, um, they made amends, and um, I found out um, a couple weeks later. It was late at night, and I noticed that Brianna was kind of pacing in her room, and I came in and I said, Brianna, what's the matter? How come you don't go to sleep? And she finally she didn't want to tell me, but she finally broke down, and she told me, my mom, she relapsed, and she's just out there, and she calls me before she when she comes in, so I can go to sleep. Well, anyways, Brianna graduated from the middle school, from the eighth grade, and um, Tina, her mom, had came to her graduation, as I was there also, and she just looked beautiful. Um, I remember I went and bought this beautiful dress for her, and um, my daughter, um, she was uh, she had big breasts, and a lot of the dresses that we would get, they just showed too much cleavage or too much, and she'd say, "Oh, I like this, Dad, but I know it, it's." Finally, we found this one. It was just beautiful on her, and she says, "I really like this one, Dad." I says, "Yeah, I like it too." She goes, "Oh, it doesn't show too much." I says, "Well, honey, you can't hide them, you know." She loved it, and she looked so beautiful on her graduation day. And anyway, a couple of weeks in, after graduation, I believe it was a Sunday night, and um, you know, Tina had called and she was talking to her, and I think we were in the back of the car, or she was in the back of the car, and she says, Daddy, my mom wants to take me to this carnival in Clio or something. Can I go? And I says, No, Brianna, you can't go with her. She has supervised visits, and um, you know, there's a lot of things that happen, in these years that it was hard for me to open up because she broke a lot of trust, and that's an addict. They lie, they steal, they do a lot that you lose the trust in them. So she said, Daddy, she wants to talk to you. I says, No, I'm not talking to her, and tell her it's not happening. So I stood firm, and the next day, Tina's brother had called me, and I think it was I can't remember if it was at night or what time of the day it was, but I remember my daughter, she was in the shower, and I got that dreadful call that Tina lost her life to addiction, and so after I got off the phone, me and my wife, we waited for Brianna to get out of the shower and stuff, and after she got dressed and stuff, we came into her room, and right away she kind of knew, what happened, or it's like, what's going on, what's wrong, and I had to tell her that dreadful news. And of course, she broke down and she cried and cried and cried and cried. But a few days later, she gave the eulogy at her mom's funeral, and so proud of her. 13 years old, she stood up, and she told her friends, or her mom's friends, she says, this is what this is what drugs do. You know, it's a dead end road. Don't let this be a reason for you to go use tonight. And sure enough, because see, an addict, it's like everything is a reason to go out and use. Um, when you're an addict, you think, oh, okay, you know, this is the way it is. So I was very proud of her. Now, Brianna's 13 years old, and summer went by, and at that point, Brianna started to not to really get. Well, she did. She started to get in trouble, and she started to experiment with pot and alcohol and even prescription drugs. And um, you know, I kept her in the therapy and stuff, but I don't know. It's like Brianna was very smart that she would only give you what she wanted you to hear, or you know, every time I'd ask her, are you okay? Maybe we need to get into grieving counseling or this and that. She'd always say, I got it covered, Dad. Well, comes the ninth grade, and in ninth grade, in the middle of the ninth grade year, they had I think CPS or somebody came out to the school, and they were talking about molestation and sexual abuse. And at that time, Brianna had came forward and said that she was abused by her mom's boyfriend. Now, CPS took a report, and I got wind of this because the school called me, but every time I tried to talk to Brianna about it, she would never, she'd just say, I can't talk to you about this, Daddy, and I think she talked to my wife, but my wife made a pact with her that she would not cover it with me or give me the details. So, at that time, I let the system kind of deal with it. But at the time, I remember a few months went by, and I called back to the counselor at school, and I said, whatever happened with this? Nobody ever contacted me. Nobody ever contacted my wife. We never heard back from CPS or anything. And the counselor says, well, maybe they just didn't believe her, because I know they never followed up even with the school or whatever. So maybe they just didn't believe that it was true or something. To be honest with you, at that time, I'm hoping that this is true, that it didn't happen, that my daughter had made this up. That ninth, she went through school in ninth grade, and then in 10th grade, that summer, still having a lot of problems with Brianna. Not so much, it was more like it was hard for her to just be at home, and she just, I don't know, just bad mouth, and I just figured this was just a teenager, she quit going to counseling and stuff like that. So right before school started, in the middle of summer, Brianna was cutting herself and stuff like that. So I took her to, we admitted her at this place in Rochester, I believe, and she was there for like 8 days or something. She came back, and we thought it was okay or whatever, or she was okay. I think what happened is right before school started, we caught Brianna in bed with somebody, an older boy, and at that point, I was talking to Tina's brother who lived in Tennessee, and he says, send her over here, you know, maybe, a change of scenery or whatever, maybe that might help. So, anyways, we did, and and to be honest with you, I mean, it wasn't the best of times, I remember when I put her on the plane, we weren't really talking, and I made sure she got everything she needed, but we didn't really say goodbye to each other. Anyway, she ended up going to Tennessee, and at that point, we didn't really talk, but I think it was right before Thanksgiving or Christmas or something. Briona had passed out or something. You see, Briona was anemic, and so she passed out, and her aunt had called me to tell me that she went into the hospital, and that was the first time that really we spoke, and I was so worried about her and stuff, and at that point, we kept talking and stuff, and after the New Year's and stuff, Briona came home. So she didn't want to go back, to her school. She was kind of embarrassed to go back to the same school, so she wanted to go to another school, which I got her enrolled in that, and about a month into it, 10th grade, she met this older boy. Now Briona's 15, and this boy is like 1 month shy of being 18. And at first it was like, oh, Dad, he has a rough upbringing and this and that, and I said, well, let me meet this boy, And as soon as I met him, this kid just did not seem right. He seemed like secretive, and his stories just didn't really jive out. But first it was like, oh, we're friends in this. But about a month into it, now this kid is 18, and Briona starts cutting school. She's getting in trouble. Her classes, her schoolwork isn't good and stuff. Well, at this point, I'd called the principal, and I asked him to get, isn't there such a thing as uncorrigible or something where you guys can help me out? And I believe the deadline on that was like April 1st, and the principal had told me, yeah, you missed it by, a week or something. So as Briona started running away, I would call the sheriff, and it seemed like I was calling the sheriff every day or every other day, and it was like, it's me again, my daughter, she ran away again, So at this point, it's like towards the end of the year now, and before the end of the year, or the end of the school year, her mom's best friend was a cop, and she said, let her come stay with me, and maybe that will help. So she did, and then a week later, Briona ran away from there, and she ended up living with her boyfriend or whatever. And now the school year had ended, and I had called the sheriff department. I explained, to be honest with you, I got tired of calling the sheriff because I felt like they didn't really do anything. They would take the complaint, and it's not like they're going to go looking for her, but if they found her, or if she came up in their system, then they would call me or bring her home or whatever that would be. So now this is like June had passed, and this is a week into July, and I get a call early in the morning from a police department in Holly, and she said, Mr. Jahari, it's like 5 o'clock in the morning, And she says, "Can you tell me what your 15-year-old daughter is doing with this 18-year-old boy?" And I says, I don't know. What do you mean? She's a runaway. She says, "Well, she's not in my system as a runaway, you know." Um, Again, like I said, I got tired of calling the sheriff department, but I was working with this sergeant, you know, and he was supposedly getting all this information so I can get in front of a judge. So at that point, I had called the sergeant and left it on his answer machine that my daughter ran away from where she was staying, and I'm sure, you know, she's staying with this older boy. Um, Anyways, what I found out that, you know, it doesn't matter if she's with an older boy or not. If she's not willing to press charges, it's not like they're going to do anything. Which it didn't make any sense. She's a minor. I'm the guardian, but she has all the say in anything that happens to her. So that's where we were at with that. So anyway, after that, you know, I ended up. First, I didn't want to go get her. You know, and at that point, CPS told me that I had to go get her, and you can't pick and choose your children, you know, just because you have a problem with this one, you can't pick and choose. If you're not going to come pick her up, then we'll come and get your other kids. And so, you know, of course, yeah, I ran and got her. You know, she came home, and the problems never went away. So anyway, I went to this runaway program or whatever, you know, and, you know, he was like an advocate for her and an advocate for me. So, you know, he tried to get us together and come up with an agreement, you know. She wasn't supposed to run away anymore, and, you know, I'd be a little more open, long as she did her part or whatever. So anyways, she ended up running away again, and finally I got into in front of a judge, and you know, I love my child, and at this point I found out, you know, when they found Briona, the reason they found her was her boyfriend had overdosed, and that's how they found her, you know. So now I'm thinking that, you know, I found out that my daughter was using, and she's using not just weed or whatever, she's heroin, you know, and she would never be upfront with me. You got to understand, my daughter was very terrified of needles, you know, and I tell her, I say, there's no way you put the needle in your arm. You know, somebody had to have done this for you. Oh, no, Daddy, no, you know. I tell her, I said, Briona, you know, you seen your mom die of this shit. Why would you even attempt it or try it, you know? She said, Daddy, I wanted to know what was in this drug that was so good that kept my mom away. It didn't make any sense to me, okay? But to her little brain, I guess it did. You see, because her boyfriend was on this stuff, she kind of wanted to show him, you know, look, you can do it once and just quit, you know. Anyway, you know, so we end up going in front of a judge, you know, and I'm telling this judge, I says, Your Honor, you know, I don't know about sending her to jail, you know, I'm trying to give him an understanding of who this person is, that, you know, because all they do is they see these things in front of them. And this judge, he says to me, he says, you know, it sounds like you just want to blame everybody. You need to take a couple weeks off and being home with your daughter. And I believe at that time she ended up going to the detention center for 2 weeks or something. Well, that was just one of many trips, you know. Briona was hooked to the demon, you know, and that was just one of many times, you know. They sent her to, I think, Carol's or whatever, as a rehab place, you know, and she's supposed to be there for like 21 days. 9 days later, they called me up and they said, come get her. I didn't really understand, so I'm over there, and I got her counselor. He's telling me, well, she'll be back. I'm like, I don't get it. You know she's coming back. Why are you letting her go? But I don't know, the system just really, really sucks, so I didn't get it. And to be honest with you, I handed her to the wolves that I thought were there to help me. I thought that they were the specialists in this area. Um, I thought that, you know, my daughter was going to get a cure and somebody was going to help her. Um, so over and over she kept going to, in front of the court, to detention center, to, a couple of different rehabs for like 8, 9 days. Um, they put a tether on her. She cut the tether off and you know, um, broke away from home. So when she cut the tether off, um, they found her. They found her 3, 4 days later, and where they found her was she was in some house, and finally the police went in there and got her out, and she was so messed up. She was so messed up. So they said, we found her. Can you meet us at at the courthouse? So we get to the courthouse, and she's out of it. And so we go in front of the magistrate, and he says, I'd take her to send her to Hurley and make sure she's okay before they send her to the detention center. So I followed them, the ambulance, and we met up over at Hurley, and the doctor, she is just yelling at her. Briona's, just please give me some Suboxone, give me something, bring me down. I did $700 worth of heroin. Please do something for me, And I remember this doctor. She's just yelling at her. Why should I do anything for you? I got all these people needing beds and that are sick, and you're doing this to yourself. Why should I do anything for you? And to be honest with you, that I guess made me think that's how I thought. It's in your hands. You're doing this to yourself. Why don't you just stop? So if a doctor, this doctor is supposed to know these things. It's an addiction. It's a sickness. It's a disease. What she didn't get? She didn't learn about it. That's how I thought. So I figured it was choice. It was her choice that's doing this. It's in her hands. It's in her hands to quit. So finally, every time we would go into court, I would tell her probation officer, please don't let my daughter slide through the cracks. Please, please find her some help, get her treated. Well, you know what? When they sent her back to the detention center and she was all messed up, the guard ended up beating her up. This is our system. It's not perfect and it sucks totally, but that's what happened. So anyway, after the detention center, finally they sent her away to this place in Dearborn Heights, and she was gone for about 4 months. Now my daughter is, she comes home, she's 16. Within a couple months, she turns 17. Well, at 17, they finally got her off probation. She was doing really good and stuff. And, the judge was like, oh, he wanted to pat himself on the back, oh, look at her, how good she looks and stuff, and proud of you, and, proud of the probation officer because look at you, you're all clean and you look good and stuff. Well, as soon as they let her off probation, Briona got back with that same crowd. She didn't want to be at home anymore. And it was like, I call her probation officer. I'm like, she wants to move out. What can I do? She's like, well, she's 17. You really can't do anything. It's not in your hands anymore. So Briona ended up moving out, and You know, she would come around every blue moon, you know, and as a parent, you know, I'd give her a little bit of money, I'd give her some food, um, but I was just enabling her, you know. Um, I didn't know for sure, but she'd call me and she'd be slurring her words and talking real quiet like and stuff. So yeah, she was using, you know, and and Brianna ended up coming home late January, you know. Um, Actually, before you know our last Christmas together, um, Brianna was into dolphins because her mom loved dolphins, so she had them all over her room and stuff. And I gave her this dolphin necklace, you know, and I don't know. After Christmas and after the New Year's, you know, Brianna came home. She called me and she said, "Daddy, you know, I overdosed and I'm done with this. I want to come home." And I told her, "Honey, please come home. You know, come home, but please, you can't do this shit. You know, you got two brothers you need to look out for." And she said, "I promise, Daddy." You know, and she comes home, and um, you know, it's hard to trust somebody when the trust is gone. And as much as you want to, you know, I just thought to myself that if I just said the right thing, or um, you know, was there to protect her, I could, you know, and she would change. Um, well, uh, Valentine's Day weekend, um, you know, Brianna, she sent me this text. You know, I'm going to Detroit and I'll be back, you know, tomorrow night. And I said, "Brianna, you didn't even ask for permission. You just want to go? What's up with that? You know, if you're not going to live under my rules, you can't be staying home." "Oh, Daddy, I love being at home. You know, please this, that. It's Valentine's Day weekend or whatever." Well, that Sunday when she came home, you know, I put the law down, supposedly. You know, I told her that she needed to go back to school. She needed to get her driver's license. She needs to get this. She need, you know, and if you're going to do that, that's fine. If we're not, you know, then you need to move out. She said, "No, Daddy, I'm okay." Um, so after we talked, you know, Brianna went to bed. And Monday, Valentine's Day, I was going to get my my taxes done. And um, you know, that morning, Brianna woke up and she kind of just put her arm up, like, you know, she was saying hello. And um, and I went off to do my taxes. And I came back home about 1:30, and I had lunch, and I'm talking to my wife, and now it's about quarter to 2 o'clock, and I'm like, "Doesn't Brianna have to go to driving school?" And she's like, "Yeah, it's at 2:30. You know, have you heard from her?" And she says, "Oh, I heard her walking around up there, but she hasn't came down." So um, I went up, and my daughter was dead. She was behind her bedroom door, and she was gone. And you know, after she died, I remember the phone rang. Her phone rang as um, the the ambulance was. She was still upstairs in the room. They hadn't brought her down, and I don't know how the word got out so quick, but there was a friend of hers on her phone, and she's like, "Mr. Jahari, is it true?" And I said, "Yeah, it's true, Erica." I says, "Please don't do this shit anymore. This is what happens. I promise, Mr. Jahari." You know, and she's crying and stuff. Well, 2 days later, Erica died, and the same way. And I realized that there's an epidemic, and something needs to be done. And I didn't want I didn't want another child to be lost, you know. And it rocked our community to have two kids die within a couple days, you know, from addiction, from drugs. Um, this isn't supposed to happen in good areas. It's not supposed to happen in the suburbs. Um, but at that point, you know, a community parent was formed, and through the help of the Genesee County Sheriff Department, um, they made Chasing the Dragon. In the Chasing the Dragon presentation, um, you know, uh, I had somebody call me. I don't know if it was a good friend of mine, her debate coach or who. He says, Sam, they came up with this program. They're going to put it on at the school. Would you speak? And I said, yeah, Tony, as hard as it is, yeah, I will. And, a couple hours later, they called me and they says, can we use your 911 call? And my wife is in the background, hell no, no, And I said, whatever reaches these kids, it's okay. We put this presentation on about 50 times now. And it's like reliving her death every time I do this. But, when I first started this, it was like about saving one life. If I could save one life, then it's worth it. If I could get through to one kid, then it's worthwhile. But I know we've saved quite a few. See, when I started this, I didn't start this for it to phase out and just go away. I started this because I want this to be Briona's legacy. Not that she died of addiction, but of how many people she saved from her story. And I live this, and this torch, it burns inside of me for Briona because she loved people. She loved people. Well, you know what? After she died, and I think we did the first, first presentation was March 21st, or something like that, March 21st, I believe, 2011, and she died Valentine's Day, so it was like a little over a month later. I struggled with depression, and I still struggle with depression, and the whole thing is, at Briona turned 18 that October 9th, and we had done quite a few of these presentations at this point, but me and my whole family, we just really struggled with this loss. And I remember we were going to meet at the cemetery, and we all went to the cemetery, on October 9th, and it was like towards about 6 o'clock, 6:30, something like that, where the sun is starting to come down. It was just starting to get a little dark. And, at that point, we're all up at the cemetery and stuff, and my niece, who's like her sister and stuff. And she said, Uncle Sammy, listen. She says, I'm coming out of this flower shop, and I looked up at the sky, and look at the moon. It's all lit up, And she said, if you look up there, look, there's a cloud, and it's a dolphin, And we all looked up, and sure enough, and the moon was just lit so bright. And the way I look at that, it was a sign, it was a sign from God to do, I don't care how much you have your whole life planned out for yourself sometimes. God says, I got something I want you to do, and I'm not going to let this go away. I'm not going to let her legacy die. And Chasing the Dragon will live on. And I will be going back into schools, and you will be hearing about Chasing the Dragon. 48,000 strong so far. And that's just a very minute of where we're going to end up. My name is Sam Jahari, and my daughter, it's a big loss. It's a big loss for everybody. And to be honest with you, I didn't know how many people she touched to that funeral. I couldn't believe how many people was there. how many people she touched in her young life. And that touch is not going to go away. And she lives in me to do, to be her spokesman, to save lives, to help with this epidemic. And it's a big war, that to get rid of the stigma that goes with the drugs and alcohol. The whole thing is, we lost 2 people in the United States from Ebola. 2 people, Well, every 13 minutes, somebody dies of drugs and alcohol. That's 328 people. And we're sleeping. We're sleeping. They didn't get a czar or whatever they call that person for the drugs and alcohol, but because we lost 2 people from Ebola, they got the czar and all these things, to come out. But we lose 328 people every day. Every day. Every 13 seconds, somebody's going into the emergency rooms for drugs and alcohol. And every 13 minutes, they die. One dies every 13 minutes. That's just crazy. That's just crazy. I wanted to give you a little touch, of my life and what I went through and how we got to here and where we got to go. I need everybody's help. I can't do it alone. And this is what I tell the kids. Look, one hand does not clap by itself. And I need warriors to help me with this fight. Help me with this war, because it's not going away. It just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. Please, join me in this fight, because together we can make a difference. Together, hopefully, we can save maybe your child or somebody in your family. You can keep your head under the sand. Okay, that doesn't mean it's going to go away. You can be embarrassed and humiliated and say it's not happening in your home when we know it is, because that's how I was. But the more I spoke out, the more everybody's speaking out. And listen, the only way anything can change is by communication and starting a conversation. That's how things change. You can be quiet all the time. That doesn't mean anything's going to change. It doesn't change. Please join in the conversation. Help me to make a change. I'm Sam Jahari. I'm out of here. God bless.